Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lounge Lab, the official podcast for the Skilla project. For those of you that listen us for the first time, I'm Konstantinos Georgiou. I'm the project manager of Skilla, and today I'm very, very glad to have with me Marco Jahn and Rosaria Rossini. They are both senior project managers in the Eclipse Foundation, one of the partners in Skilla. Marco and Rosaria, hello. I'm very glad to have you with me.
Hi, Kostan.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Konstantinos. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, pleasure is all
Yes,
mine.
thanks for the invitation.
Of course, of course. So, our subject today and one of the main aspects of Eclipse is open source skills and how and why are they crucial for young developers. So, I will begin with the question that many of our listeners may not know. What is open source and how is it different from regular software, let's say?
Well, first of all, we should not distinguish regular software and
Yes.
open source, because open source is regular software as well, right? So it's proprietary software and open source software.
Okay, makes sense.
But okay, we don't want to start with being a smartass here, but
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
all right, yeah, open source. What's open source? Open source is, well, it started with free and open source software, right? And there's basically the definition of open source or free and open source software is that there are 4 freedoms in relation to the code. Interestingly, because this is all sufficiently nerdy, these 4 freedoms are counted starting by 0, like we do in computer science, right? So it's
Okay.
freedom number 0 is the freedom to run a software program as you wish and for any purpose. So you can do whatever you want with an open source software program. Freedom number 1 is the freedom to study how the program works. So you can have a look at the source code, right? It's a fundamental thing in free and open source software. Freedom number 2 is the freedom to redistribute copies of the open source software to everybody, to anybody you want to, right? So you can take the code, you can look at it, and you can distribute it to everybody who would be interested in it for whatever reason. And the freedom number 3, so actually the 4th freedom, right, is the freedom to even distribute changed copies of the code. So you do modifications to the code, and you can take that and distribute it also to anybody who would be interested in that. So you give the chance really to benefit, or you give the chance to the community to benefit to the modifications that you did to the code, right? So that's the definition of open source, of free and open source software. So when anybody comes to you with some code or some open source license or whatever, and tells you one of these freedoms is not, you're not allowed to do any of these 4 freedoms or to implement any of these 4 freedoms, that's not open source. So that's really what it boils down to, right? Because, well, we may get into this later, but nowadays there's variations of open source and things have evolved over the time. So, but still in the end, it all boils down to these 4 freedoms.
And if someone grants you 3 of these freedoms and leaves one out, then what is this? Is it open source or is it something different?
It's something different. It's not open source.
Something different. Okay. But that's very interesting.
Yeah, but on this topic, if you leave one of these out, actually, you define that is open source by putting a license on it.
Thank you. That's
because having a license doesn't mean that it's not open source. You need the license to define the rights that you give to the others about your code. So there are more than 200 open source licenses that you can choose.
Okay, and what are these licenses? I mean, what do they? We have discussed this a lot in the project, but I would like to provide this to our listeners as well. So, just a view of the licenses and how are they different to each other?
Yes, let's say that I usually start explaining that we have copyright and copyleft. So the copyright is what defines the rights of the author. When you develop something, the code is yours. And that's the copyright. And this is something that you don't have to give away. It's your right.
Yes.
On the other hand, you have the copyleft. That is how you want that the other use your code. And the legal terms for doing that is the license.
Okay, I see. Yeah, makes sense.
And in this way, so when you define how the others can use your code, we have a different spectrum of freedom. Okay, we can start from freedom 0, that is the proprietary code that we discussed before. So you don't, let's say that we remove one of the freedom, but it's not correct, because in an open source license, we have 10 rules that now we are not going into that, but there is the open source initiative that define these 10 rules. And these 10 rules are, let's say, merged with the 4th freedom that Marco mentioned. And in the 4th freedom that Marco mentioned are, if you think about that, they just talk about how you use your code, how the others use your code. So they protect your idea on how the others should use your code. The 10 rules of the license or open source about open source initiative that are approved, the rest of the rules are instead protecting the developer, so the person that developed the code. Starting by that, we can have if a license doesn't respect these 10 rules, it's not open source. Okay, so what can be? We have a spectrum that goes from zero freedom. Okay, we say that is proprietary. Okay, so you cannot do nothing with the code. Okay, so we have a proprietary license, and then we start to have a commercial, non-commercial license. Okay, we have some degree of freedom when we, from now on, when we start with the amount of copyleft. Okay, so that we can give to the others. So we have we start from 0. We are approaching some more freedom, and the first one is strong copyleft licenses. Okay, an example is GPL. That is
yes,
of course pretty well known, but you know, most of the people doesn't know that the strong copyright license is not really freedom, because one of the interesting part of the copyright for GPL is that the copyleft of the GPL is that if you are using GPL, all the derivative works will be GPL.
Okay, I see.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is still freedom, but it's a strong copyleft license. Okay, so we are degreeing, we are fading through the full freedom. So then we have a weak copyleft licenses that are instead, let's say, the license that can give the others, not to you, but to the others, because remember that the copyleft is how the others use your code. So can give the others the idea or having more freedom. And some example is Eclipse, Eclipse public license 2.0, Mozilla license. Maybe you know also the Mozilla license.
I love
and
Mozilla.
And the light GPL license, okay, are under these. Because talking about GPL, there are different degree of GPL. So in the weak copyleft license, the idea is that you have the freedom to do what you want with my code, but it will be, for example, for Eclipse public license, there is this clause in which we say, please come back with some improvement. If you made some improvement, just come back to the community and give back if you can.
No, that's very
that will be the appropriate, that will be the appropriate behavior in a community. because the community is based on sharing, you know.
I see.
Then we have we are approaching the complete freedom that is the public domain, actually. But we are still with permissive license, and in this case we have Apache, for example, MIT.
Also one of the most well-known licenses.
Yes, and in this license, basically it's complete up to you what you want to do with your code. So you don't have to give back, you don't have to come back to me, just do what you want. And this is a very, let's say, high-level overview of what is, the open source spectrum. I mean, not the open source, but the license spectrum, okay? From proprietary license to public domain. And then we are in public domain, in which we have, that consists of all creative work to which no exclusive intellectual property rights are applied.
Yes, and anyone can do whatever they want.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so, that is something that we are strongly usually we are strongly avoid the both extreme.
Yes, surely. like politics, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
We try hard also in the real life, but it's apparently it's not.
Maybe a nice.
There are possibilities,
for the young people to remember why open source or why software licenses or open source licenses are needed at all, and why it's important. You touched on it already, Rosaria, but mentioning copyright, and that's the point, because software is like a book, like a piece of art, like a poem. It's governed by by copyright, right? So if you you put out your code wherever on GitHub, okay, there's some standard on there, but if you publish it without any license, it's protected by copyright, so nobody can use it in the end, right? That's sometimes what people confuse. They think, if I give it to somebody and they can do what they want. No, they cannot. It's copyrighted. It's your own copyright. It's not your own, but it's your own code.
It's in your own repo, let's say.
So with an open source license, you grant others the right to do something, whatever is written in the license with your code.
I see. Okay, so we touched a bit on I like the sense of open source, that you trust the community to contribute and to modify the code and produce something. And I would like, because you mentioned the Eclipse license, so because I want to describe Eclipse's role in the project, but I would like first to ask you and the viewers, what does Eclipse do generally? I mean, do you safeguard open source? You produce products? I mean, I know that you produce, for example, NetBeans. I remember from my college days, because I hated NetBeans, to be honest. But I would like to ask, what does Eclipse do when you are not speaking and presenting and doing research management?
Oh, that's our set time, so you should not know that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's like Batman when we have another life, and we fight against. No, that's not crime. True, of course.
Against proprietary software.
To put it in a nutshell, in one sentence, is we help organizations and individuals to do proper and successful open source. In very short, and that involves, of course, a lot of different topics, from legal to technical to infrastructure. So we provide services to. So first of all, we are a member-driven organization, right? So we are a member-driven non-for-profit organization. So our members pay us for providing them a home and services to do proper open source software. That includes things like providing GitHub, GitLab, developer source code sharing tools and all of this kind of stuff. But also involves in a huge amount things like community building. So doing that, right, bringing the people together and allowing them, and then having the processes, what we usually call governance, the processes for communities to develop collaboratively in the open, even for competing companies, right? To work together on common software projects and solving some problems that they have collaboratively with open source. So we
I see.
provide this home to organizations and individuals to do to work collaboratively in the open, even among competitors.
So you operate like a hub and provide guiding others to use the open source protocols. Let's say. Okay, that, so you're basically like a social organization that does. I don't know how to describe it. You guide others to see the benefits of open source. Let's say.
Yes, we enable others.
Yeah, in other words. Okay, I see. So yeah, I would like to inform our listeners that Eclipse is one of our pilots in the project, and to move on to this subject because I want to discuss this. Your pilot case concerns skills for open source. So what we want to do is to see how your developers in your projects are connected to skills that develop open source code. So what could we mean when we say skills for open source? How do you perceive this?
Well, it's not an idea of perceiving, it's an idea of living. Because it's in our pilot, let's say, and in our life, as has been mentioned by Marco, we have communities. It's not only a work of developing, okay? It's work of governance, it's work of respect, it's work of working with others.
Yeah, sure.
What we clarify in our pilot is that we don't have only the obvious shining skills for an open source community. Like, for example, if you have a Java project, you have a technical skill in Java. Yes.
Yeah,
okay, that's true.
Yeah,
and luckily and hopefully you can use a repository, so you can make commitment. So you can make a commit, you can make a push. So that's something that, of course, can be considered as skill. And we consider that as a hard skill.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly. Technical
because
knowledge.
a technical skill, technical knowledge that you should have.
Yes, exactly.
In most of the case, when you approach a project that is open source or not, in any case, you should have for a development product, a development project. But it's not only that, because you approach a community when you come to Eclipse Foundation. So we have other skills that are underlined, that are soft skill. So we have the skill to communicate with the others in a proper way. We have the skill to behave with the others.
Yes.
And this is something we have the skill. So then to communicate, a good communication. These are only the few, that you can guess. But of course, based on that, you can extract a lot of other skills, soft skills that you may don't see as a skills, because it's, of course, you have to talk with the others, yes, but in a proper way. So you should have a good communication.
Yes, exactly.
Bringing this to the extreme, you should know English, for example.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
this is a skill.
Yeah,
bringing this to the extreme, you should be capable of communicating in English. So, okay, this is technical or soft skill. Well, we can debate about that, but still, it's a skill that everyone underestimates.
Yeah, I would call it somewhere in the middle, not soft or hard.
Yes, we can meet. We can start a new era of mid skill.
Actually, there is a term for that. These are called micro skills. The ones that are not necessarily soft or hard. They're just qualities that enhance your work efficiency, but are not exactly technical knowledge or innate characteristics. So we could say that English is a micro skill, because if you know it, perfect. You can do your work more efficiently, but no one will say, "Oh my God, you know English, you're awesome." It could be
Yeah,
considered
but I
something
think
like
it's more, yeah, I can say that, but I will see them more as enabling.
that.
But with Google Translate, maybe it could be also something not
Yeah,
really
I mean,
enabling.
Googling is also a micro skill in that spectrum, let's say.
Okay, so we will start with Excel and
Yes,
Word
yes.
document.
Okay, yeah, sure.
No. Okay, so the idea is that having a skill, I mean, having a clear skill, sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah, this makes sense.
And it's the soft skills and the communication and all of it is it's quite relevant, because I remember back in the days I used to develop code a long time ago, and
Not so long ago.
it's not easy to push out your code to the public, right? Because you think it's not clean enough, or it's not, it's 80%, it's not ready. Sharing it with others, that can be a hard step at the first glance. But then if you do it and you get feedback and maybe even get people like looking at it or contributing it's can be a quite rewarding thing to do that, right? And then you start doing more and getting involved into maybe another project that has already a community, and you start to learn how to communicate there. And of course, not everything is always happy, shiny. There can also be
that's
challenges, but that's really something that I know it helps you to develop as well, to develop your skills, soft skills or character in that direction. So that's a very big aspect of open source.
No, I quite like, this is why I like open source, because you take a project and you see it blue, from multiple people. And yeah, I like this aspect of building something together. Let's say it's the essence of communication. And
Yeah,
okay.
it's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I would like to ask you something regarding, because in your pilot we also mentioned upskilling. So say that you have two developers in an Eclipse project, an open source project, and the one is very experienced and the other is less experienced, maybe a junior, maybe he or she just joined the company. So if you want to design an upskilling program company-wide to train everyone in a new skill, how much differently would you approach the upskilling strategy in an experienced developer versus a junior one? Would it be the same training, or would you emphasize on different aspects of skills?
I will not see that like a training. I mean, I will not see, we usually don't deliver this kind of training, but what I would like to drive this conversation is that we are talking about careers, right? We were talking about being in a community and communicate with the others about a project, a software project. So in a sense, you can see that if you are participating in a community, you can find in the same community, you can find people that are more experienced than you. Yeah. And usually the open source code in a foundation, I don't want to mention our foundation, but in general in a foundation, is a good code.
Okay.
Because it's been developed by a lot of people, it's been developed by experts. And in this way is a kind of natural that if I'm working with someone that is more experienced, I'm learning.
Okay, so you rely on teamwork rather than introducing targeted upskilling. Okay, this makes sense.
Yes, also because in the context of Skill Lab, of course, there will be a specific training like, okay, you are a little bit not good in Java, but you want to participate in this project. So yes. I can advise you not the beginner course of Java, but there will be others. Of course, there will be this. But in the real life, what happens is that open source can really help your career, can really help your improvement and your training, because you are I won't say every day, but when you are in the community, when you contribute to a community, the community contribute back in some way. And one of these ways is giving you knowledge.
Yes, indeed.
Knowledge of best practices, knowledge of technical stuff, because maybe you are following a bug issue. It doesn't matter if you contribute, but if you follow the conversation, you still learn something.
Yeah, you still gain something. That's true.
Yeah, so it's a matter of day by day training that can always improve without considering that open source usually drives innovation. So you can also consider that as it's a glimpse into the future if you are in the right project, let's say. And I like to see that because it's like that, because if you approach a community, you engage the community, you embrace the idea of the community gives you back.
Yes,
because there is the philosophy behind that.
Yeah, I believe that people are generally wired to offer, even though sometimes we think otherwise. I think that we are, it's in our nature to want to offer something. At least that's what I believe, because I tend to offer, but that's why open source works in general.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's helping the other, if you want to put in another direction, but it's helping the community.
Yeah.
Is being part of the community.
Yeah, that's very poetic. Okay, I like it. Also, okay, and I would like to ask something I ask in every episode, but because it's the trend of the age, let's say. So, okay, we say that open source relies on writing a code and other people maintaining it, and there are copyrights and etc. etc. But given that today anyone can vibe code, let's say, and generate code from nothing in minutes, has that impacted open source? Has Gen AI, LLMs, impacted open source, or maybe the quality of the contributions, the collaboration between developers? Maybe if someone can generate a modification in minutes, why should I rely on someone else modifying my code when I can do it myself? That's what I've been wondering lately.
It's something we need to see, I think, how this will I mean, it's starting or has started, but I don't know. I mean, in the end, we as Eclipse, we don't really, to put it the hard way, we don't care how people develop their code, right? We care about its open source and they implement proper governance and everything. But how you develop, or how do you develop your contribution to a project, that's up to you and the project community itself.
Yes.
I mean, you could even think of setting up some rules for your community about dealing with AI generated code or vibe or whatever. You know, it's, but yeah, you raise an interesting question how this like AI generated contribution. So I don't need to ask anybody else. I just ask AI. That's I mean, that's a very philosophical question.
Yeah.
Concerning all areas of our society, I guess.
Exactly.
Right?
And the point is, how do you monitor this? I mean, maybe there will be an AI related license in the future.
No.
No, you think? Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe that could be another idea. I'm starting facing this discussion with people, you know, when you go around in conferences. And my idea, yes, you point out to the license, but actually I point out to the person. Because AI doesn't do nothing for itself.
Yes.
So you have to ask. Okay, even generative AI.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. At least.
Yes. Not yet. Yes, not yet. But even though it will starting for something. But let's look at the idea, the panorama now. So I think that is more a question of responsibility of that. The responsibility comes to the person that pushed the code inside a project.
Yes. Okay.
So, as Marco said, maybe I don't care that you develop that or an AI develop that, as long as the quality is okay. What I care is that you didn't steal that code, that the code is not, is not proprietary wrong. And I have a problem of license. So it's a matter of tracing back responsibility. And for me, the responsibility is the finger that pushed the code. So
Yeah.
I think that that is my idea, listening to and participating to different discussion about that. Also because I had an interesting conference. I attend an interesting conference some time ago, and there was a very interesting presentation that was like, do we really need, AI for doing code? And I will not give you all the details also because I don't remember, but the shocking takeaway was that they actually measure the amount of energy and cost that you should need for having 2,000 lines of code using AI.
Yeah, and it's probably huge.
For every, yes, because it was a small software house, and they say, okay, we want to go in that direction. How much it costs for us? And it was like an amount, really big amount of money. And they say, for us right now, for us it's not convenient because for every line of code we have a lot to pay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's true. That's true. And it begs the question, because this is also a point of green AI and green software engineering. Do we really?
And we trace, back to the rechargeable and to the really green sources.
Exactly.
That are
exactly.
How many we need? Do we need really that? I mean, okay, we can discuss this philosophical question for hours, but the point there was that you cannot simply use AI. So if you use AI for just a piece of code, maybe the impact is not so important in any way.
No, I was wondering the same. I mean, if I have to sacrifice 10 trees to write a program, it's not worth it. Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay, but this is again a little bit extreme. They were talking They were talking about the consume of energy, of course, considering server and wherever. But yes,
exactly.
That is the extreme. That is the extreme. And I found that presentation really interesting, not only because of the green aspect of the code, but actually also the idea. I mean, if you know how to develop something, you don't ask. So if I need a library, I will search for the library. I can ask the AI, please search for me this library. But if I have to write a code, millions line of code in AI, I'm not sure that now is something that you can do easily.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Okay.
Then my knowledge about AI is not, I'm not an expert. So it could be that it's not, it will be not true in 2 months,
Maybe.
But for now, it's something that we can think and discuss, but we cannot really manage.
I agree. I completely agree. Yes, Marco, tell me.
Konstantinos, I want to ask a question to you, if we can do that.
Oh,
Since
I love it.
You're a senior researcher at a quite famous university, right? So I would be interested in how's it working with open source in your university with your students, and if you develop something, is it a topic? Are they using open source? Are you teaching them, or are you maybe even forcing them to do open source? How does it work?
Oh, yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, in my university, Aristotle University, we support, of course, open source. There are courses for that. We do not impose open source on our students, but for example, at least the students that I undertake theses with, I encourage them to publish the code on GitHub with specific licenses. Depends on the context, of course. I mean, in the project, we have defined some guidelines for the licenses, but generally, I see an encouraging thing is that I see many students that come to us for thesis that support open source by themselves, and they say that, okay, I want this to be open source, and I want this to go public, and I'm all for it. I tell them that, yeah, you decide, and you can do anything you want with your code. So we do not impose anything really, and actually I encourage them to do so because it's a noble concept, and we do have we do teach the fundamentals of open source in the courses, but it's up to the student to decide. There are no strict rules on what they can or they can't do. But
Okay,
yeah,
I'm asking because I think that's the key, and that's very important for the young people and for their career.
yes,
in the
yeah,
end.
I
So
completely agree.
we tend to say that to the young people that your GitHub profile can be your best CV, right? If you can show that you have a track record on contributing to open source projects,
Exactly.
and you apply to a software company as a developer or whatever, that's a really strong point. So getting involved in open source early in the career in the university, that's something we
Yes.
really recommend to the young people to
No, of course,
get.
that's what we recommend as well, that you be active on GitHub and upload your contributions. That's what we tell them. And also, in many courses, they are encouraged to contribute to other projects and build a portfolio, let's say. And given that we reached the young people section, for our last question in the podcast, I would like to ask you, how do you envision the future of open source, particularly for the young people? Do you have any vision or any possible future directions based on what you see and discuss? Where do you see this going? Maybe additional licenses or maybe an even more open model?
Well, I think that according to some statistic that you can easily find, the open source is eating the world. So every product is 80% made of open source. So this is, and this is something that should make everyone think, because, I mean, we have Java is part of our working group, with Jakarta EE, and the world is running on Java.
Okay, yeah.
If you think of every, it starts with the communication with TV, but then everything, every enterprise is running on that. So it's open source. The world is open source. So
yeah.
I think that this is the answer. It's not possible if you don't share, you don't create.
Oh, that was very nice. I like it.
Yes, but that's you don't create in any way. We have a lot of interesting, it's about patent, but you can apply to everything. Interesting example, like Elon Musk that give free the license, but this means that the other can grow. This means that another person can improve your work. And this is something that, this is the real power of doing open source. This is the real power of a community, because when I cannot reach the point, you can help me do that, or we can do it together.
Yeah, so we can hope for more collaboration then, and even more camaraderie, let's say.
Ideas, yes, and that's the base of everything, I think. So I strongly see open source around.
Yeah. Okay, encouraging. And Marco, your opinion?
I totally agree to what Rosaria said. You embrace open source. You have to get involved if you're a young person and want to be a developer. It's you cannot ignore it, as the same as you cannot ignore AI at the moment.
No, so I agree, and that's a message I would pass to our students as well, because they are using open source products right now. So it's only a matter of it's only reasonable that they would like to contribute to.
Yeah, and as you said before, people want to help and want to contribute, and they it's a mutual benefit.
No, at least I
And
hope they do.
it's a great experience.
Yeah.
Yes. I always, when I go talking or lecturing about open source, I always made this example that I think is my example. And this the really simple one, and is Google Maps.
Ah, yes.
How many of you really contribute back?
Yeah.
But how many use that reviews? When
Yeah,
you have to find a restaurant, when you have to find a place,
exactly.
you know, it's trivial, but you are using open source and you are exploiting community every day.
Yeah, every day. That's the point. It's reaching every part of. Okay,
So contribute back in every aspect
exactly,
of the world.
Exactly.
For those who are listening, contribute back.
Yes.
That's a final version.
Okay.
Yes, and I have a final question for you, Konstantinos.
Yes,
if you
hit
may.
me. No, of course, hit me.
So now we are working together since 2 years. And you know Eclipse Foundation, more or less, you know our work, and you should know better open source. So how much did help you? How much this change your life, knowing open source better?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I mean, let's say that I
talking about careers, you know.
Yes, I knew open source before, but I didn't quite know the layers of it. So I could say that knowing the work of Eclipse, which was very interesting to experience because I also experienced some events of Eclipse. I think that I understood better the change in my life was that I understood that there are grand projects that are made from people and solely by contributions, and that was very interesting because, as I said, I like seeing people offering and helping, and it gave me hope for humanity. Let's say that there is some hope in the world that people can gather together and create nice stuff instead of trying to create bad things, which usually happens. But yeah, I think that it confirmed my stance that there is some hope in humanity after all. So, and of course I appreciate the work that Eclipse does because I think it's very important to sustain and guide people into offering. Even if they don't fully embrace open source, they should be knowledgeable about what open source means and that it truly supports the society. Let's say. Oh yeah, it's very for me. It's very interesting concept.
And you say that I'm poetic.
Yes, you are.
You are also poetic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I believe that it was a lovely episode, and thank you for being here. I think that our listeners will gain many benefits from knowing about open source, and thank you for your presence.
Thanks to you. If you want, we can close the episode with screaming open source at 3.
Okay, let's
2.
Go. Okay.
1. Open source.
Okay, let's go.
So sorry.
Okay, so for our listeners, this has been another episode of the Lounge Lab, the official Skilla podcast, and stay tuned for more.